Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Greater Meaning Podcast. As always, I am your host, Andrew, alongside my two co-hosts, Nathan.
And alongside our other co-host, Joshua.
It's not you're not supposed to then pass it on. It's okay.
How's it going, guys?
Man, it's going great, and I'm really excited, and this is really great that we're here doing this. We totally just did this recently.
Yeah, dude. Are you guys excited for today's episode? Just the
journey,
content, the journey.
Oh my gosh, this is just
the magnificence
one little
of
part. Yes, this is literally the journey outside. This is the Exodus. Like everything else was like leading up to the Exodus. So this is actually like them exiting out of Egypt. The Israelites, that is. In case you didn't know who we were talking about, Nathan.
Yeah,
Moses.
Yes, that guy.
We're talking about Moses.
Him and a couple others, But, as the previous episode concluded, we witnessed the mighty hand of the God of Israel, the great I Am, shake the very foundation of one of history's most powerful empires to free his people after almost 400 years of bondage. Through Moses and Aaron, God performed 10 miraculous signs, 10 plagues, that pretty much decimated the entire nation. Yet, even after that, even after 10 times, Pharaoh's heart was still hardened, refusing to yield until finally, that last 10th devastating blow, God struck down all the firstborn children of all of Egypt. At that point, Pharaoh finally relented. And now we turn to this monumental event of the actual Exodus where Pharaoh, his belated reaction is to finally let them go, but then regret it, come after them, and all the events that take place on this journey that they will have to the mountain of God. Remember that Moses is sent to get them to come and have a meeting to sacrifice. That's what Moses was going to Pharaoh essentially and saying, hey, let us go and sacrifice. Let us journey into the wilderness and meet our God at the mountain. And now this episode, we will cover as much because it's quite a bit. I mean, it's about 5 chapters. We're covering
it's 5 deep chapters.
Yeah. Exodus chapter 13 to 18, the events of the journey to the mountain, which it's insane, but
wait. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 8. Yeah, 5.
5
checks out.
1, 2.
Okay. Continue, Andrew. A lot of dead space there. You're just like blanking out.
You counted. It threw me off.
One, two.
All
right.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we ended last week. We just left it on that final devastating note. There was a cry that came out of Egypt that was never heard for, never will be heard for again. Or never will be heard in that way again. And it is definitely tragic to think about what lengths God had to go to show not only that he was supreme, but just to surpass the stubbornness of Pharaoh to release the people. And now, remember, there was chapter 13 of Exodus kind of covers something. It's not necessarily that we're going to get too deep into, because again, we're more of a Bible study or story podcast as opposed to a study. And there's a lot of study you can do. Chapter 13 of Exodus covers the firstborn consecration.
Here's the thing. We keep saying that, but we keep like in-depth studying it.
Well,
I'm not a fighter, but I keep fighting people. I don't know what's going on here.
Let me rephrase. We're gonna stop on things that obviously, if you find something interesting, things that are of note, things that are worth discussing, we're gonna discuss. But I'm not gonna comb through and pretend like I'm some type of all-knowing scholar, or that Nathan is, or that Josh is. If
I'm going to pretend.
Research,
I'm definitely going to
movies, biking song, around the world.
Dig.
What are we doing? Why is everybody singing? Stop singing. Oh, man. Chapter 13 of Exodus covers the details of the consecration of the firstborn children, which God commands in the first. Nathan, if you want to read the first 2 verses of Exodus 13.
Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Consecrate to me all the firstborn, Whatever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine.
It is mine. Remember, it's a contrast to what God did to the Egyptians versus what he does now to the Israelites, the firstborn, consecrating them, essentially dedicating them, not only just the people, but the animals, was extremely symbolic. It's pretty much in the ancient world, if you look at it in many cultures, it signifies the center or the head of the family. It would be the most important future aspect of the family. So it's a way of dedicating, the head, dedicating the center, dedicating the main part of your family life, of the animals, everything, the first fruits. Remember, Abel came with the first fruits when he sacrificed to God, and that was something that was pleasing to him. It's that same idea. And again, you can do a lot with that. I'm not going to get too deep in it. What happens to the
second born?
They're just kicked aside. They're just usually the ones that do the chores.
You don't belong to God.
No, it's the head will lead the family into obeying God and be dedicated, as well as the animals will be sacrificed, or it specifically later it says the donkeys will be redeemed with a lamb.
Donkey.
Which when the firstborn donkey, you use a lamb instead of, it's really interesting. There's a lot of symbolism there, but there's also the feasts of the unleavened bread, which will be established here. Where Moses says that, remember that in the day that you went out of Egypt, the house of bondage, for by strength the hand of the Lord took you out of his place, no leavened bread will be eaten. Essentially stating that no yeast or nothing that will make the bread rise. They were supposed to stand there with a staff in their hand, with no yeast, not even found in the house. They couldn't have it in the shelves or any type of stuff anywhere. They had to throw it out and essentially just have flat, unrisen bread. It's supposed to symbolize the state of readiness, of alertness, that's ready to go embark on this journey, this freedom. Now we're ready to go. God has finally did the last plague, the last miraculous act, and now we are expecting God to work. We're ready to go, and we're going to move on.
I hear that's one of the most delicious types of bread to eat.
What?
Unleavened.
Unleavened? You think so?
Isn't that communion bread? Like technically it's supposed to be, that's what communion bread is. That's the bread they use there. It's literally just flour, water, and salt, maybe.
Yeah.
How is that delicious?
It was a joke. I was joking.
You couldn't tell by the tone of his voice that it was a joke?
Oh, the steady, constant, regular voice that he used?
It was the really monotone, like he's stating a fact. Actually, it's the most delicious bread.
Actually,
I'm joking.
I like that you tied it with the readiness aspect. I've never seen it that way. I'm just saying I've never seen it that way, and that's a really interesting way to look at it. But also, you most likely could be right about it.
Well, yeah, it's like that state where remember, if you make bread with yeast, you have to let it, after you knead it, you have to let it sit and wait for it to rise. You ain't got to do that with, unleavened bread. You just got to mix it, bake it real quick, and dip it in some hummus. I don't know. Really interesting stuff there, guys.
Did you say dip?
Get it?
Had a long pause.
Get it?
It said it in some hummus.
Get it? Because they were going to go after they made it. But you could also use that phrase as like dip it in some type of spreadable deliciousness.
That was funny.
All right. Consecrate means to give over to the Lord. In other words, set apart. The Israelites will be a nation set apart. Essentially, God is establishing in chapter 13, they will be a nation set apart and dedicated to God, that will always be ready to move directly, without hesitation, into obedience. Remember, and we'll call back again, Abraham, when he was given a commandment to sacrifice his son to the Lord, he woke up early in the morning. He didn't delay. He didn't question. He was ready to move according to God's word. So, chapter 13 also has something very interesting. Once we get past the unleavened bread, the festival that will be something that goes on throughout the Israelites, they'll do it every year in remembrance, alongside with Passover and the consecration of the firstborns. But Nathan, if you could read for us chapter 13, verses 17 through 22, this is where it starts to get wild. Like, okay, we're moving out. remember the Israelites, they plundered Egypt, essentially, taking all, like they would ask and take all the gold and silver and all the items that they had there as they're exiting. You have a massive people, a mixed multitude. Some of the Egyptians are also coming with them. And now they're actually leaving. Nathan, go ahead and read from 17 to 22 in chapter 13.
Then it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up in orderly ranks out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under solemn oath, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here with you. So they took their journey from Succoth and camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so as to go day and night. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night from before the people.
Thank you for not.
You're the one that brought it up. You're the one that brought it up. I didn't bring it up. That was
not,
you.
Not dying. I heard the smile in your voice, and I was like, "Oh God, here it comes." I appreciate that. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Josh, for not losing it.
You
know what? And can we address the ridiculousness that is what happens here? There's a couple huge things.
Well, the pillar of fire and a cloud following people. Yeah, doesn't that happen every day?
Oh yeah, oh totally. What was that, Josh?
I was talking with someone about the whole thing with the pillar of cloud and fire, and the representation of how Christ is represented in this. And I know that you're going to get into it, so I don't want to steal your thunder. Andrew.
No.
Obviously, we're going to get into it with the rock situation later, with the breaking of the rock and the water coming out of the rock. But with the pillar of cloud and fire, it's basically like a tornado, right? A tornado of fire that's just moving and guiding the Israelites as wherever they go. When we get baptized, right, we get baptized in water, and then we get baptized in fire. When the Israelites are moving and they are exiting their old life to the new life, there's this pillar of fire, which could be represented as the Holy Spirit, which is represented as God. God, obviously being the pillar of cloud and fire, is moving through, and it's cleansing, and it's preparing, and it's helping and guiding. It's basically what the Holy Spirit is. It becomes a helper for us. And this pillar of cloud and fire, what does it become? It becomes a helper for the Israelites, not only to see during the dark, but also as protection and a guide for them. So it was very mind-boggling discussion. But yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is exactly right. And that's what tells us in John, when Jesus refers to the Holy Spirit, he refers to it as a helper, as a guide. It will guide you in all things. It will lead you in all things. And that beyond the fact just physically that it's manifesting here as this giant pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire, that alone, the ridiculousness of that sight to where God is specifically leading them. One thing we should establish before we go any further is that now that they're officially, the Israelites are on this journey, through the rest of this journey through the wilderness, before Israel is established as an official nation in the promised land, this story is going to have so many connections, so many allusions, so much foreshadowing building up. You're going to see, I couldn't stop seeing Jesus around literally every corner, knowing what we know now. They didn't know then, but God was literally with his finger, orchestrating every single possible foreshadowing and every single possible evidence that this is how I'm going to work in the lives of my people. This is why I'm doing it. And my thumbprint, my signature is here. And Exodus
this was
14,
just an external showing of how he's going to work. Now, all of this, everything that you're going to see, basically, not only in this episode, but in every episode, all of these battles and these external complications and salvations that are happening. This is what happens with us now, but it's a spiritual and more of an internal thing that happens within us. Yeah, so
it was a physical. No, you're right. What happens in the Old Testament in Exodus, and from a lot of it, we see the physical supernatural impact on this earth. As an example, when we parallel or contrast it with today, it's more of a spiritual. Not to say that God doesn't work in the physical today as well, but in these ways, these miraculous signs, like Exodus 14:19, it says that the angel of the Lord, that term, remember we talked about that a lot. And when we were going through, the previous episodes, went before in the pillar of cloud, in the pillar of smoke or of fire. And that's how kind of a good indicator that that's a form of like Christ or God through Christ, the manifestation of Christ is guiding his people. And he's establishing this from the beginning. And what is the first thing he does is that he takes them around the land of the Philistines. So to not go to there, because they just got out, they just got out of bondage. They're probably, in a state of shock and awe. They don't really know what's going on yet. You have to think like hundreds and hundreds of years they've been in slavery, and now all of a sudden these miraculous miracles, these plagues, and there's a fire pillar and there's like a cloud that's just moving. We're supposed to follow it. And God is like, I don't think they're ready to like go through the Philistine land. I think they're going to get, like, if war happens to them right now, the moment they get out of Egypt, God already knew they would be so afraid that they would turn around and go right back. Like, okay, we're not trying to come out here and immediately die. And it's interesting that through the guidance that God gives them, he takes them around one area, but also puts them in the wilderness. And there's going to be some trouble with that as well. But to take a moment and really reflect and think about how insane it really would have been to go outside. Just imagine, I think of a tornado. Like, I don't know, in the day, what else is a pillar
that's
of
a great,
cloud?
That's a great example of what it could look like.
It's a giant tornado that's a tornado of fire at night, and a tornado in the daytime that's not blowing them away. I don't really know. It's just, imagine and people wonder, like, oh, how did they get lost in the wilderness for 40 years? It's just a straight line. They should have went from point A to point B. But they were following a giant pillar of cloud. Like, when it stopped, they stopped. When it moved, they moved. And it says that it did not leave them until they actually got to the promised land.
Really?
No, it says that biblically. Yeah, it was with them until they entered the promised land. That's how they discerned the presence of God. And that's what come upon the tabernacle. And that's what we'll get into it. But so this is what we have a GPS tracking system now for them to be able to go through. They have the power of God on their side. They're leaving Egypt. And that is how they conclude chapter 13. Now in chapter 14 of Exodus, as they go forward in the wilderness, way that God has taken them so they can avoid the battle with the Philistines.
We have the Red Sea crossing.
We have the Red Sea crossing.
The miraculous Red Sea crossing.
I would say read verses 1 through 12 for us, please.
Chapter 14.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel that they turn and camp before Pi Hahiroth. I only have one job.
I can't help you there. That one's a tough one. I'm going to be real with you.
My only job is to pronounce these words correctly. That Andrew pointed it out. And I don't ever really do it well. Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, opposite of Baal Zephon. God said all that? You shall camp before it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are bewildered by the land, the wilderness has closed them in. Then I will harden Pharaoh's heart so that he will pursue them, and I will gain honor over Pharaoh and over all his army, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. Now it was told the king of Egypt that the people had fled. And the heart of the Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people, and they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? So he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. Also, he took 600 choice chariots and all the chariots of Egypt with captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the children of Israel, and the children of Israel went out with boldness. That's very key. So the Egyptians pursued them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army, and overtook them camping by the sea beside Pi Hahiroth before Baal Zephon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than what we should die in the wilderness.
Yeah, you stopped like, man, they're bold. We should stop.
You
I was
see-
like, in my head, I was like, yeah, give them a second. Give them literally 1 second. Because the moment it gets tough, they're immediately like, they're snarky about it. It's so weird.
You
Like,
see,
they
the
have
fascinating
attitude.
thing, the fascinating thing about Pharaoh is that when Moses first shows up to Pharaoh, he's like, just let me and my people go, and we're just going to go out into the wilderness, just way out there, and we're just going to throw basically like a big party for the Lord, like just a big feast. And Pharaoh keeps saying no. And then eventually Pharaoh's like, you know what, just go. Just take all your people and just go. And now Pharaoh has to put his people to work during this time. And his people obviously really don't like to work. And this is where we see this conversation. They're like, well, why do we let them go? Let's go get them back. So it kind of shows it's like the Israelites were definitely doing some hard labor, some hard work, the type of work that the Egyptians were not capable of not just, they probably were capable of doing, but they just didn't want to, right? That's the whole reason of having slaves, right? It's to do the things you don't want to do. And that's what the Israelites were to them, basically like slaves.
Well,
So,
remember too, the funny thing to me about this part is that, you know, they were negotiating through the plagues. It's like, okay, well, just you guys go. The women and children can't go, or don't take any animals when you go. You know, Moses kept going like, let us go 3 days journey out into the wilderness and we'll come back, you know.
yeah.
But one thing people overlook in this part of the story is that they let him go. And then like, how could Pharaoh have such an immediate change of heart? Like they walk out. He's like,
Because they
"Never
don't
mind,"
come
you know,
back.
They didn't cut, like 3 days pass and they're just like,
That's why he says that they
"They're coming
fled.
back?" Like,
That's why he says in here, like Pharaoh saw, like, hey, these guys just fled.
hey man,
And-
they took a lot of
We're going
stuff
to be
with them.
forgot for 3 days. The guy took his whole house.
His neighbor went with them. What's going on here?
Hey, millions
All their
of
possessions
people.
is gone.
It's
Yeah.
part of the Egyptian, just part of the Egyptian people went with them. Military, just all kinds of the Egyptians were left with the Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
So
It was
yeah.
a mixed multitude alongside the Israelites. It was the bones of Joseph, which remember he also prophesied and said, you know, make sure you take me with you. Don't leave me here, you know, because I know you guys are going to get out one day. Don't leave my bones.
the Israelites. So
Um,
during the Red Sea crossing. So this is one of the interesting things is that the Egyptians just didn't show up and see that, oh, Moses and they're all just crossing the Red Sea. Let's go chase after them. There was an encampment type of position. The Egyptians set up camp, and obviously there's this giant pillar of fire that is just there. And I mean, I wouldn't know what to do with it, but there's this giant pillar of fire that's there, and the Egyptians are patiently waiting for, I don't know what, but they're waiting. And now we have to remember that the Israelites had about, I would say, about 600,000 fighting men at the ready. So the Egyptians, the Israelites weren't just like sitting ducks. They were able to fight. I mean, you got to remember, these guys were strong. If you remember anything about the whole like slave revolt that happened in Rome, some of their strongest people, gladiators, I mean, just people that worked the fields, these people are not someone to just like look over in during a battle. These people are scary, and there's a lot they're fighting with heart. So the Egyptians aren't dumb enough to just, let's just go chase after them. Now, they did have chariots. They did have a lot of horses. I mean, it said that he took about, he was there with about what? It was like hundreds
chariots.
of, what?
What are you saying?
How many? It was a lot of chariots.
It was 600 chariots. The Egyptians had 600 of his choice chariots, and
600 of his choice chariots, but there was a lot of horses. I mean, he took everything. He took all the horses in all of Egypt.
You're absolutely right. And there was an encampment, like they encamped, and it said that they were like surrounded by the wilderness on every side as well. Like there wasn't an area for like them when they're sitting, and it says that the angel of the Lord actually stood, the cloud went behind the Israelites and stood between the encampment of the Israelites and the encampment of the Egyptians. So it was like a cloud and darkness to the one and gave light by night to the other. So like the fire at night was giving light to the Israelites, but the other side of it was darkness, and like they couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
It was just, they just wouldn't see the Israelites. It was nuts. And they're complaining and they're crying out to Moses, like, dude, you brought us out here to die. And it's just a crazy
I don't
thing.
get
Like,
that.
they see a giant fireball from heaven of the presence of God and like, oh, we're doomed. You know what I mean? Like, it's wild. But I feel like people harp on them a lot. I just don't know what I would do in the same situation, because I feel like it was a very high stress situation. And, it's really hard to judge somebody. You have to think about the type of people they were. That whole generation was beaten down. They were, slaves their whole lives. Their fathers were slaves. Their grandfathers were slaves. They've only known.
Yeah, but when you go on a march like
that
and you leave, it's like a whole it's like a honeymoon phase, right? When you leave your bondage behind, like how they did, and they have such a large number of people that went with them. You would imagine that this fire, right, this like kind of berserker mode type of style, maybe that's not the right word, but there's this fire inside of them that is amped up, that nothing can get in their way. And there's this giant pillar of fire that showed up that shows that God is with them, and they're still, like, I don't mean to harp on them. It's just, how? Like,
it's
how?
Tough to, when you're reading in hindsight, it's like, how do you see all these things and then still complain and still immediately,
unless they thought that the pillar
back.
of fire was there to attack them.
Well, no, because it was guiding them, obviously, and it went behind them. It literally, like, here's the army of Pharaoh coming down, and then the fire literally moves behind them. It's like, here, let me just block them real quick for you, and this is where God takes a moment and says to Moses, do not be afraid, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. It says, God literally says, the Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. Nathan, if you actually could read
13 through 31.
15, verse 15 to 18.
I already read to verse 21, didn't I?
No, you read to 13.
No,
You
12.
read to 13.
All right.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, this is just what God says he's going to do for them right now.
And the Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. But lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. And the children of Israel will go on the dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I indeed will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. So I will gain honor over Pharaoh and all his army, his chariots, and his horsemen. Then the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gained honor for myself over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen.
What's crazy is that throughout this entire process, God is telling him what's going to happen too. Not only is he telling him, hey, I'm going to split the sea for you, they're going to follow you in. Like, I'm going to make them follow you. Just keep going. And they're still tripping. Like, they're still very afraid. And like, how much more can God give you? He's literally holding your hand and moving
Moses
you through. He said, go forward.
Moses is not afraid. It's the people that are afraid. So it kind of shows
the people of Israel that are afraid of Pharaoh, because they know he can be an un-Pharaoh.
That's
with his punishment.
That's very, very bad. Really bad.
It took me a couple seconds to kind of really get what you said.
Why? That would have been great to have used like last time. With the plague.
I've been holding that one in the chamber for so long.
Too long.
In fact, I say it to myself very often throughout the day. I'm like, you should be an unpharaoh.
Terrible. That's terrible.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Stop. I'll just stick to reading.
Man, one thing. Okay. So we have. I did a lot of research on this portion. This is the research I did. Obviously, God instructs him to lift his hand or use the rod, and he split the sea for them to travel when they travel on dry ground. But the research I did was kind of like there's a lot of debate as to like where in the world this actually took place. Just like we talked about, like which pharaoh could possibly be the pharaoh of the Exodus, to give some type of historical context or some archaeological evidence for these events taking place, or, you know what I mean? Some real world concrete things that we can use to substantiate the Bible and the claims they make with some of these stories. Because what happens here is like the basis of not only Judaism, but like Christianity. You know, this is what we believe happened. And it's interesting that when you do the research, how many opinions there are as to where this all took place. Dude, there are so many, like, oh yeah, well, Pi Hathron or whatever is over here, and then Sinai was there, and this is where the mountain is, and this is where the crossing took place, and I, after as much research as I did, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to subscribe to, and not 100%, because obviously it's impossible to be 100%, but I'm probably going to subscribe to the Nuweiba Beach idea of that's where it took place.
Oh, yeah. Well, naturally, Nuweiba Beach idea.
That's what it has the most backing for it. So I agree with that one.
Nathan, some diagrams here. Wow. It's hard for you guys that are listening, but if you Google that,
I'll describe to a T the diagram.
Nuweiba Beach. First of all, to understand where this event could have taken place, we have to agree on an end point to the journey. For many years, a lot of people believed, up until I think it was like the 1920s or 70s, something like that, that the Mount Sinai of the Bible was in Egypt, in the northern peninsula of like that part of Egypt, and it was above this part of the Red Sea. There have been a lot of studies recently with people that have discovered the Saudi Arabia mountain. What is it called? Mount. It's like Jubal something. Hold on.
Jubilee?
No. I have it right here. Sorry.
Gilabola?
No. Here.
Glabolite?
Jabal Makla.
I was almost there.
Which essentially just means
mountain of the Mount of Law.
Burnt mountain in Saudi Arabia. There's literally a mountain that in this range in Saudi Arabia, the whole top of it is like blackened and burned.
Yeah.
Like as if, you know, when the presence of God came down, like it says in the Bible, it was on fire and smoking. But the path of Nuweiba Beach, if you look at a diagram where they could have sat, it gives a perfect like little pathway through the wilderness in these mountains that opens up into this 11-mile long beach area that could easily hold as many people as should have been with the Exodus crossing. And there's just so many things that can point on the surface level. Again, I'm not,
but there's footprints
I didn't go there myself and do any dives.
There's footprints that have basically been melted into the sand, which has become kind of like black glass type, because when you melt sand, guess what happens? It becomes glass. So there's like footprints, hoof prints that are embedded into the sand as kind of like this black glass type of style. And I mean, there's no other way to really get that other than just this intense burning of sand, and that's kind of how you got it.
It's not just that. I mean, like, I don't think they were walking on melted sand.
No. I'm saying that the prints were there, and then when the pillar of cloud and fire is because it's behind them. You got to remember, it's behind them, and while they're crossing, it's still behind them, acting as a protection, and that's probably why the Egyptians waited. What?
At that point, it moves in front of them. So
no, it doesn't go.
That's why they began to pursue them. It goes in front of them at that point, so that's why the Egyptians pursued them into the open water.
It goes in front
into the open
after
pathway.
the style and the way that everything is happening here, because for the Egyptians to be completely engulfed, it's not like the Prince of Egypt style where it's like, hurry, they're coming. You're even saying that it's an 11-mile stretch, right?
Of beach.
Okay, of beach. Oh, yeah, my bad.
It was where they stayed
even the
before
crossing,
they went inside
even the
the
crossing itself. You're talking about like 2 million people crossing the Red Sea. If this pillar of fire is now moving in front of them, what is stopping? Because they are in sight. I mean, it's close. And if these guys are on horses and chariots, once you see this pillar of fire moving in front and start going towards them, I would just start attacking, unless the Egyptians are just like super polite about it and be like, you know what, guys, let's just let them cross real quick. Or like, let's just wait. And then even if it isn't, let's go with the method of they are chasing them. I don't know how, but apparently all these old people, all these little kids are extremely fast and they're booking it across. And it's not a stampede and people, wait, it's not a stampede and people are not dying and they're crossing through this super quickly. If you've ever seen 2 million people move, it's really fast. I'm being sarcastic. It's actually pretty slow. So you got to imagine the Egyptians now see these people start crossing and they're following them, but they're not following super fast. They're just kind of like slowly right behind them. Like, I see you. And they're taunting them, kind of like in scary movie, literally, like I'm saying, like the scary movies, that they're just there, but like, they're just like taunting them right behind them. I'm gonna kill you, but they're never swinging their swords. It just doesn't make sense. It would have to be the pillar of fire would still have to be behind them, still have to be there basically as a way of protection to keep the Egyptians afar, because you got to remember they are in sight. The Israelites see the Egyptians. That's one of the reasons why they're so scared and telling Moses, "Have you brought us here to die?"
No,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying, okay, that's fine. We could
Sorry,
they were guided by, well, what happened, I mean, if you really want to get into the details of it, Moses goes out and stretches, if you want to, obviously we're going to get into the details. If you really want to talk about it, I mean, Moses goes out in verse 26 and he stretches out his hand. The Lord tells Moses, stretch out his hands over the sea. And what ends up happening, it doesn't just like split in a second. It says that a strong east wind came upon the water all night. Read from verse 21 and
I am.
through 23, excuse me.
Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. So the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left.
What does that make you think of?
A wall?
Yeah, that it was split.
Wait,
so,
what does the wall part make me think of?
Josh was saying, what do you mean? It was split.
And the Egyptians pursued and went after them into the midst of the oceans, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen.
Yeah, so it was a wind that came all night. Imagine a wind from the sky blowing down, and it causes it to push away this way and that way, and it would open up from the east, and it created a pathway. Not only a pathway, but dry ground. Now, the Nuebe Beach idea of that part of the Red Sea is interesting also because there happens to be a lighter land bridge underneath the water there. On the left side of it, if you go up that part of the Red Sea, it's super deep, and on the left side as well. On both sides, it just right there, there's a perfect, with the decline degree, very, very gentle, like easy for them to go down and come in. Because imagine if you split the sea or a large lake to walk down, you don't just walk across flat ground and the water's not there anymore. It's deep and you would have to climb down into a mountain. So it was necessary not only for the waters to be parted, but underneath the water, land enough or high enough,
pretty flat,
or elevated enough to be flat and lifted up to where, you know, they could actually get across with that many people.
If you're a fisherman, if anybody fishes out on sea at all, they know that there's deep spots. There's spots where it's just all of a sudden a drop spot, and there's high spots. So Yes, I mean you bring a very valid point when you're going across with a bunch of wagons and old and young. You can't just have just these giant trenches that you have to, like, find a way across. God had to specifically choose a spot that is in an elevation that can make sense for a large group of people to cross with pretty much with ease.
Yeah, I mean even where it says they were camped, I didn't mention this earlier, but Hafaroth, where it said they camped in that beach area, that directly translates to mouth of the gorge. And when you look at it from a map, the Nueva Beach literally looks like a mouth at the end, like surrounded by wilderness. Actually, Titus Josephus in his Antiquities of the Jews, he writes about this. I have a portion here he wrote from book 2 in chapter 15, where it describes the area where the Egyptian or the Israelites would have been at topographically. Now, when the Egyptians had overtaken the Hebrews, they had prepared to fight them and their multitude. They drove them into a narrow place, for their numbers that pursued after them was about 600 chariots with 50,000 horsemen and 200,000 footmen, all armed. They also seized on the passage by which they had imagined the Hebrews might fly, shutting them up between inaccessible precipices and sea. For there was on each side a ridge of mountains that terminated the sea, which were impassable by reasons of their roughness and obstructed their flight. Wherefore they pressed upon the Hebrews with their army. The mountains closed them, and they wouldn't have had derived any other passage from either side. So that's an external source that also kind of describes what it looked like and how they were forced into that area of, I believe, the Nueva Beach. On top of that, I mean, in 1970, I know Ron Wyatt did some discovery there. And then also in 2001, there was a few researchers that actually did some diving in the area. Actually, what's his name? Aaron Sen.
But diving,
dove and actually found. Dr. Leonard Moeller conducted underwater videos of the area, or Moeller, and found all sorts of coral formations that look like the outline of chariot wheels, and there was a bunch of skulls and bones and exoskeletons that are completely encased in coral.
But it's interesting about how the military now over there will not let you really get close to any of that. Well, yeah,
the Saudi Arabian government and the Egyptian governments really prohibit a lot of excavation and archaeological dives. They're very limited to what they're allowed to do because of the governments in the area. That's another thing about the whole Jabal Maqla, or the Mount Sinai site in Saudi Arabia, or the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. It makes it very difficult for a lot of people to go and really, venture there. They were very closed off. They didn't let a lot of tourists enter the country for any reason. So it's not like a lot of people could go there and confirm, yeah, this is the mountain. But whenever you go to that area and you talk to the locals, they're like, oh yeah, that's God. That's Moses' mountain. That's where Moses met with God. There's no doubting the people that live around the area. But it was traditionally believed to be in Egypt, Jabal Musa in the Sinai Peninsula of the northern part. That's where people for up until that point thought that the Mount Sinai was. And so they have this other route that takes you the Red Sea crossing at the very northern part, where it was a very thinned out part. But there are also people that completely disagree. Like there's a guy named Stephen Rudd who wrote an entire book discrediting the Nueve Pass peninsula, like that part. He said he wrote, I'm talking about, like, if you click, you can Google it and actually pull up.
It's an entire book.
He wrote so many things like why this is not the right path, and the actual path was more south, and it was this other area that would have been made more sense, and shows that it was a part, because there's this part underneath the Red Sea where you could have come up, and it says they had to go back. And I'm not, like I said, there's so many different other people that believe so many different routes, but it's just like whenever you pull up your Bible in the back and they have like the maps where it shows like Paul's missionary journeys and the Exodus journeys. Some Bibles have those. It's tough for us to see on a map exactly the route that the Egyptians would have taken without making some of these assumptions.
I mean, even on my Bible, it's funny because it shows like this is the route that we think it took. I'm reading from the MacArthur Bible. I really like the way that it's set up. But it's like in this one, this is the route that we think it took, but then these are the other routes that other people think that it took. So I have like 3 different routes in my diagram here of which ways it could have gone. For me, going back a little bit. What?
Real quick before you go there, another thing is like that land bridge at the Nueve Beach where they go past it, it leads straight to that Saudi Arabian Jubal Makla site, that blackened top mountain site that is in Saudi Arabia for Mount Sinai. It really does help line up perfectly with the events that are going to take place after this.
Yeah. For me, what I was going to say was back to the splitting aspect. Why I said that I don't really see the act of splitting, which yes, it is conceptually a split, but the way that it's the way that it's done. It's that he sends a strong wind and basically pulls back the entire river back into back into the sea and holds the other part back. So it's not 2 winds going complete opposite directions. It's one wind that's pulling it back, pulling the sea back, and then the others. It's not really like a wind. It's a wall. It's basically God acting like a dam. So there's these 2 walls. I mean, if you read it, you see it. That's.
I don't think we should dissect it that hard. I mean, it's weird that you're just like, no, he didn't split the sea. He pushed the sea. Long story short, there was a wall on both sides. I don't think it's really this is an interesting
so you're
thing.
trying to say that one part of it was pulled.
I don't know why
the other part of it was held.
Why there always has to be a part that seems to be obvious that Josh is like, you know what? They weren't in slavery. You know, you know what?
They weren't.
He pushed it.
Well, what he did
Not
is he
all of them
and
were
held.
in slavery. We've gone through this. We've gone through this before. We don't have to bring slavery.
Listen, I'm just saying. I didn't. They crossed the Red Sea.
Do you think the angels were like, hold, hold, like in Braveheart?
Hold the door! Hold the door!
When they let the water down.
Yeah, that's literally what happened. One of the most interesting parts of this is as they're crossing apart. Nathan, if you could read verses 24 and 25, this part really trips me out.
24 and 25. Now it came to pass in the morning watch that the Lord looked down upon the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud, and he troubled the army of the Egyptians, and he took off their chariot wheels so that they drove them with difficulty. And the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians.
So they were literally like there inside the waters, and
they just like prank them.
No, he just as
wheels
as they're going, the wheels fall off the chariots.
That's the first recorded stealing of the rims in history, and it was recorded and it was done by God.
The part that
God stole their rims.
I read it incorrectly. It said that the Lord looked down upon the Egyptians through the pillar of fire. And I just imagined like they look up and see this big face just appear in the cloud. They look up like, we got to get out of here. And they're like trying to roll away. Their wheels are falling off. And that's exactly when God comes in and tells Moses, hey, stretch out your hands over the seas that the waters may come back together. And that's what happens. As Moses stretches out his hands over the seas in the morning, the seas return to its full depth. And while the Egyptians were fleeing all the Egyptian horsemen, chariots, and the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea, not so much as one of them remained.
Do you think this was all just an elaborate plan by God to steal those rims from the Egyptians?
He
get away with it?
He didn't take them. They just fell off the chariot as they're driving. It's like
the gall,
saying as you're driving.
All this, Abraham, Isaac, everything was just made because the Egyptians were known to make awesome rims for their chariots.
Well, it's funny that you say that because that's another indicator that helps us date the time, remember we talked about when the Pharaoh could have possibly we dated it to about 1450 BC to 1500
with their rims.
BC. The rims, in the coral formations of the chariot wheels that crusted over at the bottom of the Red Sea in that area of Nueve Beach, they famously had 4 and 6 spoke wheels. The only time in Egyptian history they date the usage of those wheels specifically to about 1450 BC is around the time the Egyptians were using the 6 spoke and the 4 spoke wheels. Now, to play the devil's advocate to that, Stephen Rudd in his book does also mention that, they would have been using wooden wheels and it would only be steel wheels that they didn't use during that time period. So making that argument is silly. But again, I think this is where they passed. I think that it leads to a really good route for us to follow as we go through the story here, that with the Mount Sinai that they're headed towards is going to be the one over here in Saudi Arabia.
What I got to say is that the gall that the Egyptians had for their constant pursuance of the Israelites, even though everything that they see and everything that's happened to them, I have to kind of give them credit on just their persistence. Like, these guys obviously were not a nation to be trifled with. And even throughout Egyptian history, we see that Egypt is a war horse that just conquers everywhere they go. So of course they're known for it. They're known to be great at battle. They're known to be just like a nation that really cannot be overcome. So I guess they couldn't let this go. At this point, they're one of the most powerful, or if not the most powerful empire, or one of the most powerful empires to exist in human history.
But guess what? Their arms were too short to box with God.
Yeah.
And they didn't bring any scuba gear because they all drowned. All the Egyptians' armies.
Except in the movie, in the DreamWorks movie, we see Pharaoh survives all of that and lands on a rock.
It doesn't say anywhere that Pharaoh was in there with the army. It just says the army of Pharaoh. So it doesn't mean that Pharaoh, and in history, there was, I don't have.
When it says Pharaoh takes his whole chariots and goes after, you have a point. You do have a point, but I would suggest that Pharaoh probably followed them. But yeah, it could be that Pharaoh stayed behind and watched it all happen. And
I think that's what happened technically, because I think that Egyptian history would have recorded a pharaoh being swallowed up by the sea. Like, that would have been something they wrote down.
Which this kind of would be Amenhotep II, right?
Amenhotep II, yeah.
Amenhotep II.
Technically, or some people think it was Tutmosis III. Some people think it was the one after them. I believe that it was Amenhotep II, but again, it's debatable, and it's very much so argued by scholars, of which we are not. Nathan, read verses 30 through 31 and finish up. This is one of the most incredible portions of the Bible, one of the most incredible examples of God's salvation.
So the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Thus Israel saw the great work which the Lord had done in Egypt. So the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses.
So this is such a climactic, final moment. Imagine being the Israelites. Now you have a whole sea separating you. You see dead bodies washing up on the floor. You're out. Behind you is nothing but wilderness and open land. You have a promise. You have the pillar of God there with you, because it's the morning time at this point. And that surreal moment of joy, where you were seconds ago, you were so afraid, and now you just wow, we're really here. We really made it. We're really free. This is the next chapter just records songs that Moses and Miriam sing.
Which I know this song, and I'm going to sing it.
Please.
I was joking. This is a long song.
I'm not going to read
so many verses in that song. What's crazy is that Miriam's verses is 3.
Well, still, it's important. So
50.
Miriam, Moses' sister. Moses begins chapter 15 in Exodus after this event, immediately composes a song It literally says, then Moses and the children of Israel sang this song to the Lord, God speaking, I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider has drowned in the sea. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a lot.
But that's how it starts.
But
if only they left us like a couple of notes, like a rhythm or whatever, just something to know how it went.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because in Israeli, in the ancient Hebrew language, the letters and the figures they use are so versatile that I think I remember seeing a video somewhere where there was a guy that the way David even wrote the Psalms, every lyric and the way he titled them were also notes in the phrasing they used. So like the words also have a bunch of different meanings. They're deeper meanings, and they're also notes on their musical scale. So like there's a guy that broke down some of the Psalms and can actually play. He made an interpretation of the way it would have sounded for David to play it on a harp. And I thought that was really cool. Again, I have to look up to see exactly what it is, but look that up, guys that are listening. I think that I'm not wrong there. But yeah, in the words, there should also be like some type of scale that they could have gone off of in that original Hebrew. The ancient Hebrew language is beautiful. It's
the
crazy.
key they use is G.
They strum it on an acoustic guitar
in G.
I wish I had a guitar right now. I'd play G and just start singing this song.
I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea.
A breakdown of the song's elements is essentially just praise for God's power and deliverance, judgment on Egypt, and a hope for the future. The role of continual worship after a divine act is something very important to be established by Moses, the leader. They see that God has done something for them, delivered them. They're free. They witnessed a miracle. They don't just sit on their hands. He immediately turns with worship. And as the leader of the Israelites, establishing that is so important, because that's something that we should do as well. When God works in our life, we should praise him.
Would you say that the crossing of the Red Sea could be interpreted as kind of like a baptism?
Yeah, absolutely.
Washing
there's so much symbolism there.
Away.
There's so much symbolism there, and there's so much symbolism in
the Israelite sins away.
I wouldn't say it's a symbol. It's more of like an entrance, a baptism into a new life. They're born again.
Passed away.
Yeah, they're now they're a new people. They're a new nation. They have a whole new identity. They were this one thing for hundreds and hundreds of years, and crossing through the Red Sea was that final climactic moment of like, now we're no longer, there's no affiliation to Egypt at all. They couldn't go back even if they wanted to, unless God opened the sea. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't even, there is no going back. We're at the point of no return. And this is where the adventure begins.
There is that one Jew that did go back to Egypt, though. And he's like, I promise it wasn't me.
So after Moses sings his song, the 18 verses of...
There isn't. I'm just making that. That'd be a funny Adam Sandler movie, though. I can see Adam Sandler making that movie.
Yeah, he is Jewish.
Making that one Jew that turned back after the Red Sea cross.
After the 3 days
he just starts going to work.
I didn't want to go anymore. It's hot. It's sandy.
They made... So there's this show on YouTube. I don't know what it's called. There's like, they made the Moses journey, like in the wilderness, this exact part that we're covering in this episode, like in an office setting. And it's like they have a pilot episode where it's supposed to be like funny, and it's actually pretty good. It's not like, mocking in any way.
The last time you showed me a YouTube, it was
just listen, we're ignoring that. But I'm saying, like, you should look it up. It's called, I think I sent it to Josh. I don't know if you ever watched it or not.
I didn't get the chance to watch it, but I will.
It's really funny.
Hey, can we get to the bitter waters made sweet?
Hold on. Read Miriam's song and dance. It's really important that she leads women in a celebration. It also establishes the role of women worship.
Oh, is it?
In Israel.
Is it so important?
That's what I have in my notes here. We should have touched on
Miriam, the prophetess.
Read 19 through 21.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to read more than 19. I'm going to read 20. Why would I read 19?
I said 19 through 21. That's the song of Miriam.
No, it's not. It's 20 and to 21.
Why you what?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Miriam
20
the
to
prophet, is the
21.
sister
Read
of Miriam,
that.
took a timbrel in her
Yeah,
hand,
but that's verse
and all the
20.
women went
Let me read
out.
what are you doing?
All the women went out.
Yeah.
It's important. But the actual song is 21 through the, okay, read.
Just
Read.
read it.
Bro, it's all right. I'm
Just
going to
read-
read 20. Then Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with the timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, "Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea."
It's funny how that rhymes in English.
But you know, the thing is, that starts in 20. Why do you keep saying 19?
Okay, can I make a mistake in my notes, man? There's a
No,
lot of
you're
reading.
not allowed to.
I have like 11 pages here, dude.
Do you know what a
I'm
timbrel
gonna-
is?
It's a tambourine, like an old
Kinda like
tambourine,
either a tambourine
but doesn't
or
have the little.
could be a small
I think it's-
drum.
I think it's like, you know how the tambourine has little cymbals that like make the little rattle.
Yeah,
It's like a
without that.
tambourine without the little cymbals. It's just a skin over like a circle. You just.
Yeah.
That's the rhythm you think it was?
It could have
I don't
been.
I will sing to the Lord, triumphs gloriously. The horse and its rider has been thrown into the sea. Bam.
All right.
You know, that worked. I don't care what you say right there.
We're dorks. All right, so let's get to the bitter waters made sweet, because this is pretty cool.
All right, this is actually pretty dope. Nathan, if you'll read
22?
22 to 24. All right.
Man, it's like right after it.
Yeah.
But we really harped on that, all the women being so important that the women we acknowledge.
Listen, I didn't mean to make this a point, but as I'm going through the
You're
Bible,
we must
Sarah,
go over this
from
with
Sarah
Miriam.
to Hagar to Rebecca, like the women's roles in the Bible, they're extremely important, man.
They are, and I'm glad that we went over
They're-
the fact that she got all the women together and they beat some little drum thing.
Can
and
you
sang.
not diminish it so hard?
I'm not diminishing it. That's what they did.
They beat their little drums and they had their little moment. Now let's get back to the main
She
story.
literally repeated what Moses said in the very beginning too. It wasn't like she made up those lyrics. The lyrics she said are literally what Moses said in the beginning of his song.
All right.
But anyway.
All right.
All right. Let's do the bitter waters made sweet. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. Then they went out into the wilderness of Shur. Sure they did. And then they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Now when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Marah.
Thank you, Nathan.
And the people complained against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" So he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. Was it a tree of Mamre?
No.
When he cast it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a statue and an ordinance for them, and he tested them. And he said, "If you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. So they camped there by the waters.
Okay, so you just read the rest of the chapter, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, I did. Because
So
it
even
flowed
with
naturally.
this, if the waters were bitter, could it have been that they were just salt water?
I think
was salt
bitter
water.
waters just mean it was also stagnant water. It wasn't running, it wasn't flowing. So that way, if it's still, it's not moving.
It's probably
more.
Aquafina.
It had a lot more chance of like bacteria, disease.
Well,
like
if
it needs to
they
be
were used to the
boiled.
Nile River, and the Nile River is not
It's
salt.
a flowing river. Is it a saltwater river?
No, it's not salt.
No, it's a freshwater.
There's no such thing as
it's
a
freshwater.
saltwater river. What is wrong with you? I mean, there might be I know there's a saltwater lake, like Salt Lake City.
All right, my bad. What I'm saying is,
There might be saltwater rivers, but for the most part, they're not salty.
Well, this one, it either was stagnant, and if it's stagnant and bitter, then it's probably poisonous.
yeah, they were worried.
So they just
Well, what
couldn't
shall we
drink
drink? They complained against Moses.
We're not drinking Aquafina.
it. And
So
guess what
you
he
gotta
does?
do something
Guess what he
else.
does? Guess what
What does he
God
do,
does?
Josh?
He
What does he
says,
do?
Here's a tree. Put this tree in the water, and the water was made sweet.
Right.
Yeah,
Saying that the tree healed the water and cleansed it of all of its impurities, kind of like a cross is made out of
Kind
a
of.
tree.
kind of
And
like a
from
cross.
the waters and blood that came out of Christ, we were
Kind of like a cross. And what was Adam and Eve told not? Of the knowledge, but the other one that was kept by
The
God,
tree of life.
the tree of life. This tree of life brought life to the waters. And what does Jesus provide by dying basically on a cross, which is a tree? He provides life, right? So in this scenario, these people can't drink water, and water is something you need to survive, especially in the wilderness. So God provides life to the waters for them to drink.
I think it's something else we should establish that God is establishing here at the semi-beginning of their journey through the quote-unquote wilderness, which there's more than one wildernesses that they'll travel through. This is the wilderness of Shur.
Sure it is.
But there's 6 wilderness that they're actually going to pass through. I don't think it's actually nobody ever realizes this, but wilderness, they think desert and they just think like a Sahara desert that they're walking through or rocky place. But wilderness is also just the wild, untamed, could be, just not a lot of secure ground, a lot of secure places. But one thing God establishes before they really get into the quote unquote wilderness part of the journey. I don't know why I quoted that, but he tested them and said, if you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, give ears to commandments and keep all of his statutes, I will put none of these diseases on you. God is conditioning their salvation, their continued salvation, and their sustainment with obedience. If you're going to follow God, you have to keep his commandments. If he's going to do these things for you, he will do them for you, but you have to heed his voice and walk according to his will. He's not allowing them just to do whatever they want, be whatever. You're free now, act however you want. He's like, I brought you here to be my people, to heed my voice and to do my will. And if you do this thing, then I will save you. Then I will sustain you. Then I will keep you and guide you through the wilderness.
Just imagine, there's just this one guy that just starts getting all these diseases, and everybody's pointing at him. It's like, he didn't listen. He didn't listen. Oh, sure Jebediah over there.
Oh, there's going to be more than the one guy in the corner.
Sure, there's a few of them that don't ever listen.
But it's beautiful, that illustration of you throw the tree in the water, which should have been a big water, but he throws it in, and then all of a sudden it's sweet water. And then they come to Elim, which there's a lot of Romanian churches named Elim. Elim was like a place of rest. And there were 70 palm trees. There's something there. 12 wells of water, I guess, to signify the 12 tribes that are there, but 70 palm trees, and they camp there by the water before they really get into
You know why it
the
was
second
70?
wilderness.
You know what's so interesting about the 70? Because
why?
Do you remember when Joseph brings his whole family and everything? How many of them were in the family? It was 70.
Oh, there was.
So there was 12 brothers. There was 12 brothers, and there's 70 in the entire family.
Dude, you're absolutely right. That's actually kind of a cool little nod back to that part of the story. That's really, really cool. I didn't think about that.
I'd like to read something a little bit on the whole tree making the waters.
Yeah,
go ahead. The tree in the water, because it's very interesting. It's just like, just throw this tree in the water and it's going to be made sweet, because there's a purpose. And as you've seen with almost every single miracle, everything that God does and chooses to do, there's a purpose behind everything.
Oh yeah,
100%. And why it's done, and it's how it's done. It's not just he just chooses random things and let's just go with it and see what happens.
He didn't just say, hey, grab that tree that fell and toss it in.
Yeah, well, with this, it's a little bit. So give me like 4 or 5 minutes. It's a little read, but it's very interesting.
Oh, don't read for 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going to cut you off right there. Yeah, summarize, please.
Okay, so it's suggested that by some rabbis that it was a date or pomegranate tree, something naturally that's sweet, and by others. By other rabbis, it's suggested that it's like an olive tree or a willow tree, because they are bitter. throwing in a sweet branch to make water sweet seems something like the more obvious solution. So why throw in bitter branches? These rabbis explain that a bitter substance sometimes heals another bitter substance. Sometimes salt, for example, can kill a certain bacteria and render water permissible. A certain rabbi brings proof from Kings 2:21, where Elisha went to the spring and threw salt into it. And Elisha said, "Thus said Hashem, I heal this water. No longer shall death and bereavement come from it. That this use of good bitterness will heal evil bitterness is a divine method for healing." The argument for bitter is quite a nice argument, and many of great sages believe it was a bitter tree that indeed healed these bitter waters. But other rabbis, suggesting that it was a sweet chemical, basically are therefore use of this tree of a natural cure. Basically, to summarize that this guy's basically saying that it was most likely a bitter tree. The bitter element, chemical or otherwise, was used to get rid of the bitterness of the water, not merely to mask its flavor, but to render the water healthful for drinking. The Hasham grew this particular tree in a climate and conditions where it could provide this very natural miracle. All he had to do was show Moses where the tree grew, and voila, like magic, the water turned sweet. In other words, this magic trick took years in the making and required botany and cultivation on God's part. So God prepared this tree for Moses for this exact moment, you know? It's kind of like when someone says he or she had success overnight. Yeah, there was a lot of effort and planning beforehand. So it wasn't just like a random tree that's like, oh, we're just going to have this tree here. It took someone to specifically plant this tree in that in that area, and then for God to say, hey, that tree, throw that specific tree in the water, and everything will go smoothly. Because these trees are not meant to grow necessarily like right there. They don't just randomly grow. You have to plant it there specifically, and then it will grow. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thought to think that how far God goes to prepare, and he really does think so far ahead for the provision and for the salvation that he has for his people. Every single detail, if you look at it from that point. Of course, you have to suspend, like you have to make a lot of assumptions and assume that that's exactly what it is, that was the type of tree, to have that thought be, correct, but I don't know. I like the idea of it being, I liked the whole, it was a tree cleansing the water, and it just, it was God doing a miracle. He could do it with any tree. It didn't have to be that. But at the same time, the other way you're saying it is also a miracle, having that planted there ready for that specific moment over time. Like that in itself is also a beautiful thought. So that it's really cool. And that's something that, like, I know Jewish tradition can hold. They've passed down the tradition of what they believe a lot more tightly, through their midrashims and through. If it was an
olive tree, it could be one of the reasons why the olive trees, even with Jesus, when they're laying olive branches on the ground for his beer, why there's so much significance with the olive branches in the olive tree.
It was palm leaf branches because it symbolizes victory, but
my bad.
But no, yeah, you're right. I mean, the olive tree is just, the olives they produce olive oil, which is a valuable substance, and it's a symbol of like wealth and value. They use oil to anoint kings because it's a symbol of like anoint. Anyway,
but I gotta anoint them.
Another thing here is that God is established.
Sounds very Irish there.
God is established as Jehovah. God is established as Jehovah Rapha.
First, we got to anoint him. All right, I'm sorry.
trying to make like a point.
I'm so I haven't gotten much to say this episode.
That's okay.
No, you've said plenty.
Good. Yeah, thank you for that. That was important.
What? You don't think so?
I'm just kidding.
And
No.
hey, Josh, I don't pick on you. I sat through your boring dig you just read.
I
Listen,
read something very like
I
miraculous.
thought that was interesting.
Yeah, he's slowly taking my job. He's like fighting. He's just finding other books to read so he can read.
No, in the story of Abraham at the mountain, whenever they found the rams in the thistles, God was established as Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. Here at the waters of Mara, God is established as Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals or restores. And I think that's beautiful. God is going to continually reveal himself as the great I am. Remember, he gives this name to the Israelites as the great I am. And as they journey and as they go through these experiences with him and draw closer to him, he's revealing more parts of his name. His name isn't simply one thing. He is so much and everything. And I thought that's really pretty because that's where we get that phrase Jehovah Rapha,
So
or that specific name.
Hey, so yeah, can I ask you on both something?
Sure.
So like, as we move forward, we're going to see that God's going to provide a bunch of stuff for them, right? Like food.
Through these
miraculous
wildernesses
food, like-
before they get
Yeah.
to the mountain. Yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff, right? Do you think before these, because this is a large group of people God's referring, do you think like when it says the Bible, like Enoch walk with God or something like that, do you think that's the type of relationship God had with the, like, you know, the
Moses.
older generations of people, like providing stuff and like kind of like doing miraculous things, like daily miraculous things? Because this is like daily stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is not like, oh, one thing happens and then months later. So no, like this is like every day.
Well,
there's a
this
pillar
is
of
daily.
fire.
This is daily during this point, but you got to remember, like
Mhm.
before all this, it was 400 years of just nothing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Do
I
you
don't
think
it
like
was-
God ever expressed himself daily to people
yeah,
in this
in-
fashion?
in the garden, whenever he wanted, but when sin entered into the world, that's what we lost. We lost that daily walk, and this is what God is trying to reintroduce and
Except Enoch.
reconcile.
Enoch had it.
Enoch walked with God in the terms of like he walked in accordance to his ordinances and God took him. And I'm sure that in Enoch's instance, he did see things miraculous on a daily basis. But like Abraham would go long stretches without hearing a word. He'd go years before getting and the word of the Lord spoke to Abraham. You know,
And Noah too, right?
Noah went 40 days just on, like God said, build a ark. He built it for 120 years and he just did that. God wasn't coming every day like, hey, build it.
It took him a long time to build a
Yeah,
ark.
we have to go back to that.
Yeah,
That
like
is
that's-
120, and then he was on the water for. God didn't say nothing during that time. He sent out birds. It's like, are we good yet, dude? Is there land
Are we
anywhere?
good?
I don't know, Noah. It took you 120 years to build this.
That's why it's so important that when Christ came and he sent the Holy Spirit, we have the Holy Spirit now. That's God walking with us every day, in us, through the reconciliation of the sacrifice through Jesus Christ that we have. We are reconciled to the Father. And that's why this journey, this walk of the Israelites to the mountain, through the wilderness, to the promised land is a perfect archetype for the life of a Christian on the earth today, post Jesus. Every
Yeah.
step that they take, the way that God provides, the way that God intercedes, the way that God delivers, and that's why it's such obvious allusions to Jesus, like the waters, the stick, the trees, it cleanses and saves, and then the preparation, and even the next part. So we're going to go into Exodus chapter 16. But no, I don't think that everybody got that. I don't think it was like that. Like this part of the history for the Israelites is so important, and God is literally walking them because spiritually they're infants. They're literally newborn babies, and God is with them, holding their hand, carrying them literally as we would a baby through this period of time until they grow into the part where they can get to the promised land. So one of the things he does is in chapter 16, we are introduced into what will sustain them. You see, they depart from one wilderness. Again, remember that there's going to be 6 different wildernesses that they travel through in their journey. It's not just they're in the wilderness. So they were in the wilderness of Shur whenever they got to the waters of Mara. And now they depart from Elim with the 70 palm trees and the 12 wells. And now they're entering into the wilderness of sin or sign. It's not sin because as in like they did something bad. It's more of like the wilderness of like the Sinai Peninsula or Mount Sinai, like, you know, like the shorthand for Sinai. And it's also a desert. It's also called the desert of sin. Sin has no relation to the word. It's just,
but it would be hilarious.
Because it's in the proximity.
Like, while you enter this desert, just beware, be cautious, do not sin, because sin is tempting at your door.
So
I'm going to read from 1 through 36.
No, hold on. There's what? No, there's there's also some people that may have understood that
I'm going to read from First Romans 31 right
so
now.
I'm going to go ahead and read the next 2 chapters.
Dude, that happens in church sometimes. Like the verse will be like 25 verses. I'm like, dude.
This morning we had, you know how in Romanian churches we do, the services are a little bit different. They do hours of prayer, and there's usually a psalm dedicated to that hour that they will give exhortations from.
They do that?
Yeah, and the psalm that usually if it's a long psalm, like if you get Psalm 119, the guy's not going to, they usually read the psalm in the beginning of the service and then they'll pray and sing and then maybe give an exhortation. But if it's a long psalm, you're supposed to like read verses. And this morning was like the longest psalm ever. And the guy just read the entire thing.
The entire thing?
It wasn't 119, was it?
It was 104. It's not
couldn't
the
have been
longest.
119 because 119 takes a minute.
It's the longest chapter in the Bible, but I just thought it was funny that you mentioned it because I just thought about that. And he kept saying, "This is a long one." It was great. It's a good psalm though. You should read it. It's really powerful. It actually describes a lot of these events and how God delivered. What am I talking about? Okay, so they're in the wilderness of sin, leaving from the waters of Mara and from the Elim. What do you call it?
They journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they departed from the land of Egypt. That's what you're trying to say.
Oh yeah,
it's like right there in the verse. You can just read the verse.
So Sin isn't Sinai.
It's a shorthand for the area in proximity to Sinai. Some people believe that it was also named after the ancient moon god Sin, who was worshipped by the desert dwellers of that area. Yes, there was a lot of desert nomads in that area.
Other people, it was just because the Sin family owned all the land there.
Yeah, we're just gonna name a family. In this portion of the Bible, in this Exodus chapter 16. Something very interesting happens. They journey a couple days. How many days is it? 3 days?
It doesn't.
I think 15.
It doesn't really say how many days.
The 2nd month they departed, and the whole congregation immediately, verse 2, complained against Moses and Aaron.
15th day of the 2nd month. It does say 15 days.
Yeah.
No. It's just the 15th day of the 2nd month.
That's when they left.
So it's like
but
February 15th.
They immediately complain. That's just, we're noticing a trend here that the Israelites, despite the miracles of being at this, oasis, that's the word I was looking for, the oasis of Elim, in the wilderness, they immediately just are like, well, we're thirsty. We're not thirsty, but we're hungry.
No, it's not really a complaint because they say, oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full, for you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. That's not a complaint.
No, that's totally just
that's
hey, Moses.
That's an astute observation. Hey,
didn't they go out there with?
I would rather
didn't they go out there
than die.
Didn't they go out there with animals?
I'm sure they did, but they're just so dramatic. Like, it's just, that the Lord would have killed us himself in the land of Egypt. Like, why?
That's how
they
seem to talk to Moses at this time.
So just as God will deliver or guide them with the pillar of fire and the cloud, the pillar of cloud during the day, God is going to establish something that's going to carry them throughout the rest of their journey through the wilderness. In chapter 16, Nathan, if you can read from 4 to 5.
I mean, I literally read all the verses before, but okay. Then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily.
So God, this is where he establishes that he will rain manna onto the people, the bread, the wafers that will miraculously appear every single morning. And also here, he's going to give them meat as well. Behold, I will rain bread for you. You shall go in the prayer. And then it also says, in the evening, you shall know that the Lord brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning, hold on, let me read. Where is it actually?
It's in verse 8 is where he talks about the meats, right?
Yes, and they shall see when the Lord gives you meat in the evening, and in the morning bread to the full, for the Lord hears your complaints which you have made against him. And what are we? Your complaints are not against us, but against the Lord. So Moses is establishing this dynamic where they keep coming to Moses and Aaron, and Moses is like, I am literally just doing what God told me. I am just a spokesperson. I don't have any power myself. So when you complain and grumble, you're not doing it against me. You're complaining about that large pillar of fire that's standing right, like he's getting pretty frustrated here, and it could be very frustrating for sure. But, that's a miracle in itself. The bread, and again, the allusions towards Christ there and daily bread. Christ is known as the living, as bread. He's referred to as that in the Bible as well. His body is broken in the communion. His body is the bread. His blood is the wine. But I want to kind of take a minute to explain manna and the way it looked and how it was gathered. I mean, it's given very specific instructions. They were to go out in the mornings and gather it 6 days a week, but they were only allowed to gather enough for that day. Whatever they needed. They can gather enough that they needed for that day, but no more. If they tried to carry it over into the next day, if they tried to save some, it would literally putrefy. It would become worm ridden and it would smell. It would stink. And it was kind of like that same word for stench and odor that it was used during the plagues of Egypt, whenever it was like the frogs were heaped up and there was a stench throughout Egypt. The same word is used here. Like it would have this stench that would go throughout the entire house. The appearance of manna would be like this fine white flake-like substance that was similar to a coriander seed. And it tasted like wafers made with honey when raw. And it could also be baked into cakes. It could be ground or with oil. It could be pounded. It could also be boiled and fried, and they would use it to store in these little basins. There was an amount that they would use for some reason to they would use to measure it. They called it an omer. They would take roughly an omer or 2 omers. The equivalent of 1 omer to what we would know today is essentially, this is weird. Now reading this now, I'm like, this is silly. 43 chicken eggs or 3.5 pounds, or 0.6 gallons or 15 cups. Whenever you see
that's a lot of carbs,
whenever you see 1 bushel was also equivalent to an omer or an FF. That's also found in.
You're fascinated by the manna? It's fascinated by the quails?
The quails, they're just birds. They fly. Waking up and seeing magic bread on the floor, I think that's pretty cool. That can also be baked. The reason I mentioned an omer also is because Moses tells Aaron in the end of the chapter to take up a pot and put about an omer of manna in it and lay it before the Lord to be kept for all generations. And this is significant because, again, they were not supposed to keep it more than that day. They were supposed to take enough for themselves and their families and have that trust and faith in the Lord that tomorrow there'd be more manna. But Moses tells Aaron to gather about an omer's worth and put it in a pot, and that did not go bad. It was kept good miraculously for hundreds of years. And actually, whenever the Ark of the Covenant will be established, one of the things they put inside the Ark would be the law, the staff that budded, and then that jar of omer of the manna. So thought that was pretty cool. Josh? Oh, I didn't know if you were frozen.
I think quails are
No.
delicious.
I'm not frozen. Whatever you said.
Roughly a little over half a gallon, or
it was just very precise.
15 cups. And then on the sixth day,
argue.
in order to have enough for the Sabbath, because keeping the Sabbath day holy was very important, they were to gather a double portion. And miraculously, again, they weren't supposed to keep any overnight, but on that sixth day, whatever they kept overnight didn't spoil and it went bad. It's just so obvious that there was something that was supernatural about that element.
All I'm going to say with this, I guess, is just tying it back to Jesus with all of this is you see bread, the bread of life coming down from heaven, another sign to showing like God is giving part of his body, right? Like when Jesus is saying, this is my body, remember it, right? So when this bread is coming down from the heavens, it's God providing part of himself to them so they can live. And then this is another reason why we have to look at like why God's saying like, keep my law. It's because he's giving part of himself. He's not just providing like, oh yeah, here's this ram, or here's these flowers or these mushrooms, just go eat those. He's providing himself to them so that they can live. And all he's asking is like, just come on, just listen to what I'm telling you to just hold on to, you know, like these laws that aren't just here for my benefit, but they're here for your benefit, you know? So
you mentioned that, and that actually reminds me of something very important. It's this phrase here, the way God speaks about this. He says,
by the way, Omer is 1/10 of an ephah.
what?
Ephah. Just a few people wondering what an Omer, how much an Omer is. It's 1/10 of an ephah.
Cool. I got
it says that at the very end, just to clarify the unit of measurement. You see, what I'm doing is I'm filling up the empty dead air that Andrew's just leaving because he's scrolling through his notes.
No, there's a verse that's very important here. I want to make sure I don't mess it up. I didn't put it in my, because God says it.
The children of Israel ate manna 40 years.
No, the Lord said to Moses, and when he established this again, like he did with the previous verse in verse 4, I found it, that behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a quota every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. Just like Josh just pointed out to me, reminding me, God is doing this, and it's funny that he puts this, and when he makes this miracle, this repeating miracle, he said, I'm doing this to see if they're going to obey me or not. And this isn't just for today or like further the entirety of their generation while they're journeying through the wilderness. Let me see if they'll follow my commandments or not. I'm going to go ahead and hold up my end. Let me see if they can hold up their end. And it's funny that later on, literally, they immediately didn't. Like it was. And it happened in verse 27 that some people went out on the seventh day to gather and found none. And they were like, wait a minute, where's all the manna on day 7? And Moses was like, I literally just told you on day 6, you gather double. Don't leave your house on day 7. Today's the day of the Lord. Go back in your home. Like he literally says, get back in there. How long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws?
It just goes to show you that people are kind of dumb.
But it's exactly
large
right.
Large group, like they just don't, like it's not even that tough of instruction. Hey,
like,
man.
Immediately forgot. And it says some of them, and God literally says that, like, how long will you refuse to follow my commandments? Like, I gave you one rule.
God looked at Jesus and like, can we
can we do something here,
something
man?
else, other people that's chosen. Those Egyptians listen to I'm just
okay. Oh man, now let's move on to chapter 17, because this is going to be where we end. This is the climax of our episode here. Well, I think the crossing of the Red Sea was the climax, but this is one of my favorite chapters in the Exodus
thirsty
story
again
because of what happens. Then Nathan, if you can read the first 7 verses, please.
No. Okay. Then all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped in Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people contended with Moses and said, "Give us water that we may drink." So Moses said to them, "Why do you contend with me? Why do you tempt the Lord?" And the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why is it you have brought us up out of Egypt? To kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?"
God, it just sucks so bad.
So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, "What shall I do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Go on before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand your rod with which you struck the river, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in the Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So he called the name of the place Massa and Meribah, because of the contention of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?"
Meribah. It's Rephidim.
What's Rephidim?
Did you bring us out here to die?
Rephidam.
What I
I
say?
don't know what he said, like Rephidam or something weird.
Hey, maybe it's that way. Maybe it's not the way you think.
Okay.
It's just,
But did
it's
you bring us out here to die, bro?
constantly,
Like,
they
you
are
just bring us out here
constantly
to-
just complaining on that. And they're using, it seems like they know how to trigger Moses already. It's like,
They
you
know how
just
to trigger
brought us out
God.
here to die. You're trying to kill us, and it's just like, just bring us water. And they know that Moses is going, like, I feel like they know they're not going to die. They're trying to guilt Moses into like, hey, just go ask God for some water, and that's exactly what Moses does. And
Do you think Moses ever
Goes.
responded to somebody who's like, "You brought us out here to die," and he's like, "I brought you out here to die." Oh, not everyone. Just you.
Is that how you would respond, Nathan?
That's how I would respond eventually. Like, just you, not everyone.
Oh man.
but
There's so
then
much
now
just-
we have this rock, and it's interesting that God's saying, "I'm going to stand before you while you do this."
Nah, there's so much beautiful, there's so much crazy symbolism, dude.
Through all of this, it's just like this whole Exodus, this whole story, it's showing. Isn't it interesting that it's not just with this? We have every single patriarch, and we have the symbolism of Christ in each one of them.
Yeah, and we've been kind of pointing, and that's kind of been the point, is like finding these
Abraham,
stories and going
Isaac.
through these stories, finding those connections, and kind of making them a little bit more obvious. While also
It's not like
stories.
we have to. You don't really even have to dig deep to really find them. It's blatant, right in your face.
I mean, just in this episode alone, I mean, you have Jesus as a pillar of fire guiding, as like the power of the Holy Spirit in the world to guide, to strengthen, to teach, and to move, and to give the power for the people, the Christians working today, the traveling through the waters of baptism, or the baptism of the Israelite nation through the Red Sea, the symbolism of Christ's cross, or the wood being thrust into the bitter waters and made sweet, living waters that they can use to drink. Here specifically at the water of the rock, at Hebron.
Wait. Can I
Horeb, excuse me.
to go back to the bitter water? What do the Romans give Jesus to drink while he's on the cross, about to die?
Vinegar and water.
Bitter water.
Bitter water. And then what does Jesus uses
bitter.
that? Uses
Vinegar.
that. So they feed him bitter water, and then through that bitter water, it is made. He basically makes it sweet in the essence of eternal life. Living water runs and flows through him. It's almost as if, like how it happens here with my little example of, they use a bitter tree to put into the bitter water so that it can be made healthy and provide life. It's almost like as if God wanted the Romans to give Jesus bitter water to combine with him, with the living water, with him to provide this living water for all of us so that we can have eternal life.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like the fact that it was on a hyssop, and they use that, and there's like the whole hyssop branch or the hyssop tree was used like for a lot of medicinal purposes, cleansing, cleaning, and it was like there's a lot of illustration there. But what I want to point out that I thought was crazy fascinating about this part of the story, they come to this area, they need water, and they cry out to Moses, and God says, how long will you test? Why do you tempt God? In other words, if you look at these, the way it was translated is like, how long or why do you put God on trial? Why are you putting him on, are you persecuting or prosecuting him essentially? And what God's response here is so beautiful. He literally tells them, tell them to come here, bring all the elders, and I myself will be upon the rock. And then you will take the rod and you will strike the rock. So, and then from that strike, living water, the water they're going to use to give them sustenance and life is going to pour out. Now watch this. The rock itself, obviously, is Jesus. Like you see that as an illustration for Jesus later. He's considered the cornerstone, the rock in which the church is built. And the rod itself signified divine judgment and justice, almost like, again, through the use of the tree, the branch, the rock, the cross, you have divine punishment, a strike on the rock. And through that strike, to symbolize the wounds that will be inflicted on Christ, water poured out or life poured out from that strike. And by God standing on top of the rock, it's symbolizing God himself, allowing himself to be put on trial, taking the brunt, taking the strike, even though he was innocent because he had only done provided for them, only done given them life up until this point. He said, I will let you put me on trial. I will be accounted as guilty for a sin I didn't commit. And through the strike and the punishment, I will give you water and living sustenance where you're at in the world. And what happens later through Jesus' ascension, you have another allusion towards the living water from Christ being an illustration for the Holy Spirit, water that will give us the life that we need, the sustenance we need to walk and navigate through this world with the power of the Holy Spirit. Because remember when Jesus meets the woman at the well, right? And he talks about that the day is coming that my true worshipers will worship in what? In spirit and in truth. And if you ask this water that I'll give you, you'll never thirst again. The water from this well, you'll thirst again. The water they drank here, it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, actually, but I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, all passed through the sea, were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, all ate the same spiritual food and drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ, right? So they all had this water that was physical, but it's Christ and what he offers us that gives us sustenance further on. So the illustrations in this part of the story alone, or excuse me, the connections from this part of the story alone to Christ is extremely powerful.
I will say, I don't know what type of wood that staff was made out of, but if you ever take any type of wood and hit a rock, the wood's going to break first, not the rock. So just the miraculous event of the staff still.
That's what Josh took away.
I mean, I'm just trying. He struck the rock and broke the rock, and the staff of wood that was probably made of wood did not break. That in itself is a miracle.
Wait, all right. First of all, guys, are you trying to tell me that the
Gandalf?
point of the Bible is Jesus? Is that what you're saying?
It's
here?
almost like he's the main character.
Is that what you're trying to say here?
That's exactly
Wait
what
a
we're saying.
You mean the Bible, the whole point of the Bible is to lead you to realizing that Jesus was there the whole time?
Man, you had such a great, both of you guys have great, I don't even know how we're going to get to the victory over the Amalekites.
We're going to get there because I really need to get there.
That great peak, and then he's just
this is going to be this is all in the same chapter, and it's not by accident. I've lost my mind over this chapter because it's literally the same thing, the same message, the same foreshadowing is done in the same story. Before we do that, how far are we along? We have a little bit of time. I just want to point out that there's this idea. I was also obsessed with this because apparently a lot of people haven't heard about this, but a lot of people have heard about this, that this rock that Moses struck, and it was pouring out water, was following that, like from that chapter in Corinthians, in chapter 10, there's a verse, that part of the verse that says the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. Some people interpret that, and actually some Jewish people, and
they believe the rock was following
that there was literally like a rock with waterfall following them in the wilderness. And
but if you looked at it, it stopped.
Yeah, Nathan had a perfect illustration. Like, he's like, as you walk away, it's like you never get further away from it. You just look back and it's always there.
I had that.
That's what you said.
When?
You literally just said it now, but you also said it when we talked on the phone.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even remember that conversation.
First century source tells us that Pseudo-Philo's Biblical Antiquities makes a claim that, but as for his own people, he led them forth.
Who did you?
Pseudo-Philo, and he wrote Biblical Antiquities in the first century.
Pseudo-Philo.
Yeah.
I thought you said Pseudo-Philo. Oh, my bad.
It says 40 years did he rain bread from heaven and brought them quail from the sea and a well of water following them. And then also John Byron writes in his article, Paul, Jesus, and the Rolling Stone in 2015, that since both incidences, the one at Rephidim and at Kadesh, because this is the first instance of God bringing water from a rock, but in both instances, their name, the name of the rock is Merba, then they have to be one and the same. Psalm 105 also says he opened the rock and water gushed out and it went through the desert like a river, meaning that it kind of went through everywhere in the desert where they went. So there's some ideas that the water followed them. But then I also talked to somebody, and like when I got in my head about this, and I was like, I can't believe I find so many sources saying that this is happening, like this magical rock followed them through the wilderness spewing water. And then I talked to a guy at my church, and he's like one of the assistant pastors. He's like, I was like, have you ever heard this? He's like, no. And he read it. He's like, read the passage. And I read it to him, and he's like, it's just saying that Jesus, like the rock was Jesus and Jesus followed him. Like, why are you reading so weird? Like, he just immediately, like, with his confidence of breaking it down, I was just sitting there like, yeah, I mean, I kind of felt crazy for making it think like a rock was following him, but I'm not putting it past
following
God.
them. So this is an easy way to explain how the rock was. All right. Now imagine
the rock was Christ.
Imagine Ephraim is having his buddy Juju, that's not Israelite, sleep over that night. And Juju's like, hey, I want to drink some water. Where would I go to get some water? He's like, if you want water, it's left. And you're like, what do you mean? You just left. That's where water is. Like every time you want water, you just look to the left. It's not following them. It's just always following them.
It's just always appearing. Yeah.
It's
anyway,
there.
so I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, Jesus.
On to the Amalekites.
The
Amalekites.
The Amalekites, Nathan. Read 8 through 16.
Now Amalek came and fought with it. Okay, I'll read it the right way. Now Amalek
Here it is.
came and fought with Israel. How do you want me to pronounce this next one?
Oh, hold on. I'm not even on there. I'm on my notes.
Rephidim. Okay. Now Amalek came and fought with, how do you want me to pronounce that one? Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, choose us some men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And so it was, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands became heavy. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. So Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this for a memorial in the book and recount it in the hearing of Joshua, that I will utterly block out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called its name, the Lord is my banner. For he said, because the Lord has sworn The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation.
So here, God is now revealing himself as Jehovah Nisi. The Lord is my banner. And then this is another illustration of God revealing himself. And it's interesting to see that God, at the beginning of this journey, took them around a nation to not allow them to fight, so they don't lose faith. But now that they're at the spot of no return and there's nowhere for them to get back, they're like, all right, now you guys can fight. Let me show you how we can do victory.
This is the first time they introduced Joshua, by the way?
No.
I didn't see Joshua introduced anywhere before that.
No, this is the first time. This is the first time.
Not Joshua, no.
Yeah.
It's his namesake.
Yes, Josh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so we see that all of a sudden these Amalekites, all of a sudden are going to battle with them. According to William Petrie, which is a scholar, he's saying that in this region, Rephidim is one of the only oases in the region that a lot of the nomads would come and bring a lot of their animals and stuff like to drink water. And this is when they encounter the Israelites, and they're trying to prevent the Israelites from getting to the oasis because obviously they have to get to the oasis, and the Amalekites being descendants of Esau, which are people that are just kind of like just very tempered people and are always looking for some way to fight with someone. Where we have this situation where they're kind of like, we need to stop these people from getting to our watering hole because we want to get to the watering hole. So there's this little tension going on, and then they decide, you know what, we're going to start fighting. We're going to get to the battle. And first off, the Amalekites, they don't have a strong number. It's not like they're a multitude of people. They have about 5,000 to 7,000 fighting men. And this is what kind of is concluded. I mean, if you look out throughout a bunch of different researchers, they will all say the same thing. Now we understand that Israel has about 600,000 fighting men, but this is also why Moses looks at Joshua, and we see Joshua as the first time being shown. He looks at Joshua and he says, hey, go choose some men, get a group of fighters together and go and fight these Amalekites. So that's what he does. He goes and chooses some men, and because it doesn't show that all of Israel
chooses a young upstart named Joshua.
Yeah, he does. You don't see all of Israel just like start attacking, because obviously they would overtake them. 600,000 against 5,000, 5,000 to 7,000. You're going to see who's the winner. But because we see this fluctuation of, okay, his hands are up, they're winning. His hands are down, they're losing. His hands are up, they're winning. We see this fluctuation. There had to have been a similar number of fighters on both sides, right? So this is what we see.
Yeah, now, there had to have been like it was like they didn't know who was going to win. And that's why that was the edge, was literally the hands in the air and God giving him the victory. Yeah. I mean, so another interesting thing about the Amalekites is what their name means. Their name means, and before I get there, I'm going to just throw this out there, just going to give it a wild card. Some people think that they were fighting kind of vampires, that these people were kind of a vampire race. I was waiting for
their name. The name Amalekite basically means one who drinks blood, one who licks blood. My bad. One who licks blood. That these people like love their bloodlust, right? They love blood. And
so vampires, obviously.
Well, vampires, but also in the region that they're in and everything. It's kind of like there's a whole rabbit trail that goes with it. But yeah, it's interesting that they are facing a very, very evil, and we see also what they're doing. They're constantly going behind Israel while they're traveling, and parts of these Amalekites, because they're sporadic. It's not just a one group, right? There's a bunch of little groups, and they all get together and they do different things. But what they're known for is that they go behind traveling parties and they rob them. They just they steal things and they loot them. I'm glad you mentioned that. They target stragglers.
That's exactly why they were kind of battling at this point. It was like and it tells us that in Deuteronomy chapter 25, like, remember what Amalek, like when Moses is addressing the next generation, he's like, remember what Amalek did to you on the way as you were coming out of Egypt, and how he met you on the way and attacked your rear ranks and all the stragglers at your rear when you were tired and weary and he did not fear God. So that's exactly what upset God so much that started this war. That's why he's like, they keep coming up from behind and attacking those that are weak. They were kind of, like you said, nomadic, and they were just picking off the weak. They weren't like a super strong, huge army, but they were sizable enough to be an annoyance and a threat and something that was really detrimental. Like, it was terrible for the Israelites in the early stages of the Exodus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know that their name meant blood. I thought it meant it was like something evil. When I looked it up, the name meant like the evil, or meaning doubt or haughty, or the evil eye of doubt.
I know that the etymology of Amalek, or Amalekite is from Amalek, who was the grandson of Esau.
He said one cool thing. One fun fact about the Amalek, again, God makes a very interesting claim that he's going to wipe them from the earth. And the Israelites never fully do. And in doing so, they are such a thorn all the way up until, like, First Samuel recounts the grudge that God had against the Amalekites. Saul, the first king of Israel, is commanded to kill all the Amalekites and wipe them off. And that's famously the king Agag, the Amalekite that he keeps alive and then that's what separates him, and God casts him out and takes away the kingship. And then also famously, King Agag, Haman in the book of Esther, a villain, is actually a descendant from the Amalekites. So, like, through the next generations, like, they're just going to continually be a nuisance and a problem. And there's going to be like strife and battle with these people, these descendants of Esau, these nomadic peoples, as Josh said. They were just continually fighting. They sucked. But yeah, the fact that Moses had to hold his hands up, what do you guys think that means?
There's a guy called John von Setters that argues that according to traditional interpretation, a show of hands by Moses was regarded as a sign of prayer. This is significant because the text does not directly mention prayer, but it shows that Moses' gesture, like Joshua's, elevating the javelin in Joshua 8:18 through 26, it kind of shows it should be understood as a practice. In this it says magic, but as a practice of magic, and secondly as religious. But there's other people which I would also dispute it, basically, because even in First Samuel, where Israel is victorious and thankful because it's Samuel that is constantly praying for Israel to be victorious, and that's how they overcome them. This is what it is. It's Moses's constant, not only obedience to God, but it's his worship towards God. And it's so interesting on why even today, I don't know why this is more of a personal thing, but I'm just going to share it. While I was worshiping there, for some reason, God told me, for this entire song, keep your hands up, just up. And the pastor was talking about being victorious over every battle, over everything that is going on in your life, and things that are happening, that he's declaring basically victory. Just these little, like, he wasn't saying, "Oh, keep your hands up," and blah, like Moses did. He's had nothing to do that. It's just, I had this overwhelming feeling that, hey, keep your hands up this entire song. And it was hard. It was painful. Like I felt numb. I felt numb throughout my entire hand. And at a certain point, like, I just couldn't hold it up. All I could do was just constantly worship and praise harder. And the harder that I worshiped, almost like I would forget that my hands would still be up. So it was just, this is more of a personal thing. on my life, but the fact that we're talking about this now and this happened to me today, really, like, it hits home with me. That victory is brought through obedience and
submission,
kind of suffering, submission, but suffering.
So raising your hands is famously a sign of submission and entreatment, like entreating God. I have nothing. I'm relying on you, and it's essentially a symbol, surface level wise, of showing that the Israelites and Moses was relying on God for the victory and everything, but he himself grew weak on his own. And then I just want to, because like we said, in the same chapter, there's really strong illustrations. And with this, we're going to finish. Moses, with the help of Aaron, his brother, and Hur, which Hur is the first time he's mentioned, but he was a leader in the Israelites. And we're going to talk a lot about Hur in the later episodes.
Not Ben-Hur.
No, but Hur from the tribe of Judah. It was Miriam's husband. In tradition, it's believed it was either her husband or her son, but most people agree that Hur was Moses' brother-in-law. And Moses is on the top of the mountain, and you have this illustration of the war is going on below the hill, and Moses is represented as the prophet, standing with his hands up, waiting on the victory coming from God. And Aaron there, who is going to represent the priesthood established by God. Aaron and all his descendants are going to be God's priests in the people of Israel. Hur is descendant from the line of Judah. Judah, remember, when Jacob gave the blessing, the line of Judah it says the scepter shall never not be in their hand, meaning the Lion of Judah will be a ruling class representing the kingship. So you have this symbol of the rod of Moses being lifted up, or the staff like spread out on a tree. Again, the symbolism of hands in the air on a branch, his hands, and it's representing all three things: the rock underneath in which he rests, which is symbolizing Christ, the prophet, the priest, the king. Christ will represent all of these things encompassed in one, and also be the sacrificial lamb. And through that, the victory will be given to his people. And it's just so beautiful to see that type of connection so early on in the Israelites' history. And I'm going to actually use that to segue into my greeter meeting for this episode. Because we covered a lot. We talked about a lot of this story. This is going to be most of the journey up until they get to the actual Mount Sinai. They're exited out of Egypt. They've journeyed through a couple wildernesses. The Israelite people have complained and griped, but they've been provided for. But throughout all of it, God is revealing his name, Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Rapha. He's revealing different parts of himself and showing them that he didn't bring them out to be alone. I am not only going to provide for you, I'm not only going to sustain you, I'm not only going to give you a way, but I have the foreshadowing for the thousands of years from now, what I'm going to do to save not only just you, but all of humanity. And while we walk with God, God reveals more of himself to us. When God first sent Moses, he said, I am who I am, because I am everything and I will encompass everything. But you will begin to know me more as you walk with me more. And as you're walking, God is revealing more of himself. So if you want to get to know God more, walk with him more, journey with him more, trust in him more. That's my greater meaning. Josh?
I guess my greater meaning, and it seems like we've, not just me, but you, Andrew, and you, Nathan, like we've been hitting on different greater meanings throughout this entire thing without actually saying greater meaning. But I'm just going to go back to like the instance of being able, and this time I'm using Jesus, right? I don't think I've ever actually used Jesus as, my greater meaning, but this time I'm going to, and the fact that we see Jesus throughout all of this, not and we're saying like, oh, it's just symbolic and everything, but no, he's actually there. He's actually there, providing, helping, securing, and even attacking. He's doing it all for them, and all he's asking is just obey me. Just listen to what I have to say and just do it, and I will provide everything for you. And like I'm saying before, it's not symbolic. It's not symbolic. It's literal. He's literally asking them to do this, and he's literally doing all of this for them.
Yeah.
And it's even in our life, it's not like, oh, just, like you do this and then I'll just make you happy. It's literally do what he tells you to do and he will show up. He's a God that keeps his promises, and he promises that if you follow him, he will be there for you. So that's just my greater meaning.
Yep. Nathan?
Those are both really, really nice. Andrew's, yours was the daily walk, right? Mm-hmm. It's about daily walk. His was God will provide everything for you.
If you're obedient.
If you're obedient. I'm kind of going to use a combination of that and to go to something else, right? So, whenever you first, and I'm going to use myself as an example, I come from the world, right? I was a very worldly individual before turning my life to Christ. I was very, very, very deep into the world. And something that God had to teach me through some stern lessons is once he freed me from certain things that, I was basically doing, and he put different things in my life to have as a daily walk, like praying and worshiping and reading the Bible. I did have a tendency from time to time to look back and think, oh, well, I was a lot more successful back then, or I was a lot more this back then. Things were kind of better back then because I didn't have this whole, I don't want to do this because I'm a Christian holding me back. And God had to teach me some stern lessons, because if you're always looking back from where you came from, you'll never be able to see what God has prepared for you ahead of you. You got to stop looking back from what God freed you from, because God freed you from death, and what God prepared for you ahead is life, is the fulfillment of his promise for you. And it's not easy to not look back. All of us have a tendency to go back to our past addictions, or go back to bad relationships, or go back to bad habits. It's not easy to break away from that because there's comfort in that misery. And we're kind of scared for this wonderful peace and this greatness that God has prepared for. We're scared to step into our blessing a lot of times. A lot of people are scared to step into their blessing because they don't know. They're so used to misery. They're scared to be happy. And my greater meaning for you today is, don't be scared. Don't doubt. Accept God's blessing and God's plan for your life. His salvation for you, which is Jesus Christ, that frees you from any of your past mistakes, any of your sins. So many allusions to Christ with all these imagery that we see with the rock and the staff. Jesus is real, folks. He's willing to free you from the past. Don't look behind. Look for what's ahead, which is eternal life in the kingdom of heaven. And that's my greater meaning.
Amen.
There it is.
Wow.
And that's
this might be our longest episodes yet.
I think that the Job episode was around this long too, because we did a whole book in one. But yeah, man, it's just, I wanted to try to kind of include the entire journey through the wilderness to Mount Sinai in one episode. Meeting with his father-in-law and Jethro, we can kind of introduce the next episode. That's where we're going to go. But in the next episode, we're going to get to the mountain, and the Israelites are going to have, they're not just guided by God, they're going to have an encounter, and they're going to have the 10 Commandments, and they're going to have the golden calf incident, and it's going to be a fantastic episode. So we really appreciate you guys that are listening. We love all the support that we're getting, the growth that we're seeing. If you like us and you want to see more and you want to try to help us out, really, really helps us to give us a 5-star review, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. 5-star review, share us with your friends, like, share, subscribe. Follow us on our social media platforms, Greater Meaning Podcast, Instagram, Facebook. And if, we want to hear from you guys as well. We covered a lot of information. Where did you see your greater meaning? Where did you see Jesus represented? What was interesting to you? What did we miss? Email us at greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. That's greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, that's all we got for you guys today.
Or email Andrew Varga at yahoo.com. I don't even know if that's his email.
It's not, but feel free to email that. That's fun. We're officially an international podcast, guys. We have listeners.
We have the one listener in Austria.
We got pinged that we have a listener.
I have a cousin out there.
I think it might be your cousin, but hey, international is international, whether which way you cut it.
I don't think they speak English, which is awesome.
they don't know what we're saying. They're like, oh yeah, very good, very good.
They speak. What do Austrians speak? German?
I checked the analytics, and when that pinged, I was like, where? That's like zoomed in. Like, who listened from where? I thought that was kind of cool. They listened to the whole episode though. That was kind of cool.
Either way, thank you guys for listening. And if you're all caught up, dude, just hoorah to you, because it's been a lot, and it's been a crazy journey, not just for you guys obviously, but it's also been for us. This is a learning process, and I look forward to constantly getting further and further, because by the time we're done with this with the Bible, it'll be a while from now, and if you're listening step by step, it's going to be...
we just covered 5 chapters in one episode. So it's just, like he said, it's been a transformative experience. Like I've read the Bible from cover to cover. I try to do it once a year. I've done it a couple times. It's like, but going through it as and dissecting it like we have been, I'm finding so much. I'm having like experiences, like I'm starting to see things I never saw before through stories that I've read. And I just, this is why we do what we do, man. We want you to pick up the Bible. We want you to look into the stories because, you see Jesus, Jesus is there. I'm sorry. Like we're not even meaning to at this point. It's just, he's everywhere. And it's beautiful to see how he kind of reveals himself through his word. So, yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Can't wait to hear you guys next time. Nathan.
Hey, everybody. Like I always say,
there it is.
Jesus loves you.
That's not what you always say.
So do I.
That's
say it.
I say, look out for that merch.
There it is.
Look out for that merch. Better watch out for it, because I'm sure watching out. I'm scared of it at this point. I'm scared of all the merch we have. I am overwhelmed with dread of the merch.
By this time this episode gets published, we should probably have merch actually out.
We probably should, shouldn't we? We should. We should have it.
I think this is recorded
Pencil
at the
erasers don't cost that much.
Listen, yes. I actually have a quote for some hats. They're like leather and they're really dope.
Oh, leather hats is a
no, not leather hats with like they're hats, but like the leather logo. Like,
no,
they look cool.
I like those.
No, leather's lame.
You're lame.
No,
all right, guys, have a good night or a good day or a good morning.
We don't
enjoy your work today.
We don't record this at night.
Yeah, enjoy your work.
It's totally not 12:16.
All right, bye.
Great.